Just trust the pile is growing. There's a story behind that. This is your daily message from Chad number 1018 to upgrade your mental game today by telling yourself a better story, because the most important story you hear is the story you tell yourself. This message is dedicated to Terry Wurzbacher. Here's the upgrade. You focus on the moment of change, but upgraded thinking commits to daily growing the pile. Here's the story. Ed Guest was one of the most prolific poets who ever lived. I don't know if you've ever written a poem, but if so, you know they're not easy. Especially if you keep to a certain syllable count and rhyming scheme, it is demanding, not to mention having it make sense. Guest wrote over 11,000 published poems during his career, which spanned more than 60 years. He was a British-born writer, becoming a syndicated newspaper columnist out of Detroit, Michigan. But from his position at the Detroit Free Press, where he started in 1898, his daily column was eventually syndicated in more than 300 newspapers by the time he died in 1959. When I read that Guest had written more than 11,000, it made me think of the Sorites Paradox. I've talked about this topic way back in message 462. If you've read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, he uses this as an illustration towards the end of his book about the importance of consistency in small actions repeated over enough time. Writers debate about Guest being a great poet. He was called the people's poet during his career, and verses still show up in pop culture today like a Chrysler commercial or a Lemony Snicket book. What can't be denied him is that he was prolific. But what if he only published 10,000 poems? Would he still be considered prolific? What about 9,000? What if it were only 5,000 or just 4,999? Would there have been one poem that was the tipping point? At what point would he have ceased being prolific? That is the Sorites Paradox. Sorites means heap in Greek because it was posed by a Greek philosopher, Eubulides of Miletus, who is a contemporary of Aristotle. His question was, if you have a heap of sand and keep removing one grain at a time, when does it cease to be a heap? Or reverse the illustration. If you add one grain of sand to another grain and keep doing that, when do you have a heap? The key is that no single small action ever feels like it matters in the moment. Skipping one workout, reading one page, saving $1, or eating one healthy meal doesn't instantly change your life. That's why it's so easy to ignore them or slip up. But here's the paradox. Change isn't about one big leap or a single tipping point you can point to on the calendar. It's about adding up. The pile does eventually grow. You just can't see the exact grain that makes it happen. The better story to tell yourself is, I keep adding small grains every day. Stop waiting for the big moment or the perfect plan. Focus on your system instead of your goal. Consistency beats intensity every time, because the paradox works for you once you commit to stacking the grains. It's oddly liberating. You don't need to feel the change today. You just need to trust that the pile is growing even when the next grain feels invisible. This is a quiet reminder that your life is being built or destroyed, one seemingly insignificant choice at a time. Keep adding the good grains. The pile will come. What small grain are you adding or skipping today? By the way, a great poem of Guest to look up is Don't Quit. Tell me a story of the Sorites Paradox you've experienced to fromchadsmith@gmail.com. Send someone a text and ask them, have you ever heard of the Sorites Paradox? You can get a free copy of my book, The Most Powerful Story in the World, by going to fromchad.gumroad.com. The transcript of this message and hundreds of others are always available at www.fromchad.com.